What's up, Calvary Youth Culture? Thank you so much for tuning in tonight to our temporary Wednesday night programming. We're going to continue our series on Conversation Couch tonight that we've been working our way through. So last week we had on David, Kyler, and my mom, and we talked about fear and anxiety and some different, just very practical, easy tips on how to overcome anxiety. We talked about different brain functions and where fear is at in your brain and where happiness and what is serotonin and a lot of really cool stuff. This week, we're going to be talking about choices and decision making, and we're going to be sharing some stories. And we're going to be talking about this phrase, if you really knew me, you would know. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So in the meantime, what we're going to do is the first 10 minutes, we want to see you. So if you're out there, you're watching, please comment, because we're going to go through and read your comments. Obviously, there's Mama Schwartz. She said, we're ready. That'd be Mariah and Caden. Always there. Miss Sharon, awesome. Ramon, let's just guess. Should we just start guessing up Ramon right now while we got him in here? Ramon. Kiera, what's up, Kiki? Jack, what's up, buddy? Jacob, what's up? Jordan Brera, yo, Jordan, is Rocky watching with you? My mom, I'm glad I didn't have that topic. Kyler is here. CYC is the bee's knees. Yes, it is. What's up, Michaela and Miles and Amanda? Yo, it's Grant. I'm going to go around the table here, but I also want to hear from you. So here's the deal. If you comment in the first 10 minutes, so we'll give it till 7:15. If you comment before 7:15 on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, you will be entered into a drawing at the end to win a Starbucks gift card. So we have to see your comment. We got to see you.
Hi, Mom.
Just, give a thumbs up, say hello, say whatever you want, because we got to see you. What's up, Kendall? What's up, Hannah? Everybody, what's up, Christy? Oh, yes. I got a cool story to share about Christy, actually, if I can.
Go for it.
So she works at the Johnson County Juvenile facility, and they basically, with Tanya Vernon.
Okay.
And they host cool programs for kids that are underserved or they got into issues in schools or whatever. And so Calvary, we're working on a partnership with them to be able to serve their facility. So I'm really excited about that. Go ahead and keep commenting. What's up, Kyle? What's up, Hannah? What's up, Janae up there? What's up, Jacob's dad? I love how specific that is. So here's the question. I'm going to toss out there. Keep commenting. We can see you. The question is, how are you spending most of your time self-quarantining? Quarantining.
Oh,
and for you in the audience, same question. I want to know, what have you done in the past week self-quarantining? Stephanie, you want to lead us off?
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful and so thankful for the fact that I'm still going to work. Nice. Babies will still be born, whether we canceled things or not. So we were not very busy last 2 weeks, and then we had a whole bunch of babies, 9 babies born yesterday. So we got to be kind of busy, but we're trying to get everybody discharged as quick as we can. So when I'm at home, I work nights, folks. So my version of self-quarantining is sleeping.
Yep.
And watching YouTube. I can't stop falling down. It's like I'm a 9-year-old boy or a 10-year-old boy, my son. We're as bad. We'll be sitting right next to each other laughing at the same videos because I have fallen down the rabbit trail of videos now.
Oh yeah,
too.
and YouTube is like a black hole of videos.
It
like
is.
You're watching like a fishing video, and then next thing you know, you're watching
how to contour
a
your
live
face.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly, how to contour your
and
makeup.
And the next thing I know, literally Jackson watches the most ridiculous stuff in the world, and ever so often I'm like, hey, what's that? And then 5 minutes later, we're crying, laughing over like cat videos.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we even?
Yeah.
What
The
our
videos
brain
are cute
is
too.
slowly
How did we
turning
get here?
to mush daily. I've also been trying my hand at homeschooling, which means I tried for one day.
Nice.
And that was it. So there's that. I hope Pastor Catherine has some tips for me on what to do.
Crystal would know what to do.
No. So before we go to Amanda, I want to read some of the comments. Kyler started crocheting.
Oh.
So not only is Kyler forklift certified, not only is she what's the word?
Doula.
A doula. Not only is she a biblical counselor,
Yeah, jack of all trades.
she can crochet.
The Kyler of all
She's
trades.
Kyler of all trades. Janae's been watching kids, so she's been babysitting Stephanie.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Me and my kid.
Michaela's here. Love this. What's up, Danielle? Laundry and Netflix. That sounds about like mine.
I want to go to Reika's house. She's playing with Play-Doh, puddles
They've
in
been
the
making
sprinkler.
all kinds of fun stuff.
Isn't it weird that like I don't want to say anything scary, but like this like killer virus is out and it's been rainy like constantly. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
I thought it was weird, but then today it was all sunny and I thought that was weird too. Like we can't go anywhere and it's gorgeous
And it's
outside.
so nice out.
This is
Yeah.
so odd. I can't get used to it.
Yep. Let's see. Reika, we set up the old Wii and are on our 5th game of bowling for the day. Okay, so here's a story. Like maybe, I don't know if Cecily's watching this. She probably is. I think it was like maybe our 2nd or 3rd time ever hanging out. We played Wii at her house, at her parents' house. And I didn't put the strap on.
Oh no.
And we bowled and I let go. And I shattered their TV.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, it's over. I'm done. And Cecily was like, oh no, my dad. I remember just freaking out. She'd be like, you gotta go.
That's so funny.
So what was his reaction?
He was not happy.
Not thrilled.
And then,
He let him marry his daughter though, so
yes.
that's positive.
we did end up working it out. So I offered to buy a new TV, and he was gracious enough to be like, "No, you're 17. You don't even have the money."
He's
You
like,
know?
Hey, we
I want,
can be
I want a
scary.
nicer TV than what you could afford.
Yeah, exactly.
we can be we can get serious real fast. When Jackson with Reika's littlest, when Jackson was Charlie's height, we were all playing at our house and he was just the perfect height to stand right underneath you. So when we would bring the controller
no.
down, it would just
Oh.
pop him on the head
Oh, no.
so many times. Did he move? No. He had a great time, but I mean it happened more
Yeah.
than enough times.
Oh my goodness.
Dodge is here. Oh, what's up, Dodge? Mercedes and Porsche. I saw y'all earlier. Saw
Disney
Mercedes
Plus
was
every
painting.
day. I'm
Lot
with
of Disney
Jeremy.
Plus.
How many times have anybody raise your hand if you've watched Frozen 2 more than 2 times?
Frozen. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just one time.
Is
I
that-
love it.
I want to talk about Frozen 2, but I'm going to save it for about 30 minutes. Then we're going to talk about it. I saw Mariah was watching TikTok. Caden playing pool, puzzles, color, read, swimming, YouTube. Oh, what's up, Jeremy? Jeremy Peterson. He's been watching Disney Plus, playing video games. Jalissa, Mac being a workaholic. I heard Michaela Middleton worked like an 11-hour shift yesterday.
Holy moly.
At Chick-fil-A.
Michaela,
She's a
were
hard
you
worker all the time.
assigning faith over fear and all these different things on all those bags?
be her.
That was so cool
That
to
would
watch.
for sure be Michaela.
That would be me.
I love that.
I wonder if she came up with the idea.
Kendall's been playing the piano, Kendall Blunt, so I'll
Okay.
be expecting to see that
Yo,
in
Kendall,
your next
Kendall wins that
IG Live.
that worship team tryout.
Yes.
We're recruiting.
Baby Shark.
Hi, Charlie.
That's funny. Amanda, how about you? How are you spending your self-quarantining?
So luckily, we are so blessed and fortunate that Ramon works for UPS. So not much has changed with our work schedules. I don't know if everyone knows, but everyone should know by now. I am Calvary Church, the secretary of Calvary Church, and since I work in the office by myself, I'm not gonna catch Corona, and no one is gonna catch Corona if I have it. So,
Shut the door.
yeah, luckily, not much has changed in our work schedules. Our kids, obviously, they're home more now, but like I told Ramon, they self-quarantine before the Corona happened, so they know what to do.
Exactly. That's the
So
funny
it's
thing
not
about
like
the coronavirus. I feel like some people are like, I've spent my whole life self-quarantining. Like,
This is when
And
you
they
were
don't come
nice,
out to talk
was
to
regular.
us. Sometimes, like, what happened to the kids we had? Where are they?
that's hilarious.
I thought we had a daughter named Elizabeth, but she's watching.
Is Elizabeth
She's
watching?
watching.
I saw this meme that said that had like introverts, and it was like, we were made for this.
Jalissa, what's up? I know it's you
Oh, baby
and your mama's
brother.
YouTube. That's awesome. Kyler just watched Frozen 2 for the first
I'm
time
sorry.
yesterday.
Apparently,
sorry,
I need
what?
to watch these
Ugh.
Frozen. I've
Pissed
never
off.
watched.
You know what? You need to watch it turn it on and watch it the first time, and then just play it through the second time while you're doing laundry or your housework. But before you know it, it will have replayed 3 times during the day. You'll find yourself singing all the things.
Oh, it's one of my
Lost in the Woods.
Yes, that's my favorite song.
I like that one too.
Yes, it's my favorite.
Literally
it's
my favorite.
Most recently played, top played
Love it.
song
Oh,
on
nice.
Spotify.
Both versions, the Weezer version and the Christoph.
Yo, Cecily loves those Weezer covers.
So good.
She just commented, "I was made for this." Cecily was definitely made for the self-quarantining.
Yeah, we know. She doesn't answer text messages.
Oh,
Never.
Roasted on the
Calling her
podcast.
out.
Shade. So,
I
Pastor
love you,
Kat,
Cess.
what about you? How are you spending your self-quarantining?
At the church.
I'm jealous. I want to come to the church with you guys.
We just hang out all day. We just
I
vibe.
get so bored when
We're
Turner
not
comes
just hanging
into
out
my
with each
office.
other, though.
I like
Right.
talk
6
his
feet
head
apart.
off. Talk Kat's head off when she's trying to print work.
That's the thing. Sometimes I'll be in my office for a couple hours and I'm like, man, I just need to see a human. And I just
Yeah,
walk
that's how I
over to
feel.
Amanda's office.
Pastor Tommy needs to put a window in my office.
Yeah.
100%.
You can just
Yeah. So really just, I feel like I'm not working at the school right now, which makes me kind of miss that routine, but
Yeah.
you know.
I feel that. I felt it. I felt like with me, I was finally getting in a routine where I was at a school every day.
Uh-huh.
I think for 2 weeks, because I'd finally gotten into Centennial and some of the other schools, and I was going every day, and then they're like, "Oh, just kidding, no school, you're
No
done."
more.
I'm like, "Oh no!"
Now you
So
can
now I
next
spend
year.
my time filming videos. We all turned
That's
into
what we're
content
doing.
creators overnight. Hashtag influencers.
I was made for this.
Oh,
So
yeah.
catch us tomorrow when we're doing our makeup tutorials. And
Contouring, beauty
I would not
blending,
know what to do.
eyebrows.
Hair
Anybody?
tutorial.
I
Yes.
took a makeup class in high school. So in my senior year, I had to fill my credits. So I took a theatrical makeup class.
Like the eyeliner and everything.
So where I learned how to make like a wound.
Oh, that's different.
Like so
Oh.
where I could hold my arm out and y'all would think it was like an open wound and stuff.
What?
It was the most fascinating class. But a huge part of that is contouring, right? Like making things
Yeah.
look as they're not.
Making me look thinner.
Yeah. So you,
How much can I contour?
Yeah.
Them? Can I contour from the waist up or like?
Have you seen
What's the
like some
limits?
people get spray tans to make it look like they have abs?
is that a thing?
That is a
I didn't know
thing.
That was a thing.
That is a thing.
That's a thing.
Man.
Watch it on
That's
YouTube. There's
contouring.
plenty of time.
Okay, let's read some more of these comments. Binge watching Real Housewives. Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Stephanie's.
Uh,
Yeah, maybe not. Kyle, listening to music, love it. Can we talk about Pastor Kat's Minnie Mouse shirt? Let's go.
Yes.
Yes. Shout out Disney World.
Woohoo.
If you're watching Walt Disney, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think he passed away. a long
Amanda
time
said,
ago. No.
he's dead.
It's probably fine. It
But
lives on in our hearts.
I do love Disney. I do.
Love it. Let's dive into our discussion for tonight. It's 7:15. So if you commented, we've seen you. You're locked into our system. We're gonna do a drawing at the end of this. So stick around, don't leave. We're gonna talk about our discussion for tonight. So the reason that I asked Stephanie and Amanda specifically, and also Pastor Kat like a couple hours ago, just
Catherine
just,
bails us out more
big-
than once a week.
exactly. Big disclaimer here. Kat only found out like 3 hours ago she was coming on this show. So give her a little bit of grace.
Give
Jalissa,
grace.
we miss you
All
so
the
much.
clapping
Julie.
hands in the
Yes.
comments for Pastor Kat showing up.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love my-
So the reason I'd asked the people in this room to come on is because I just love their stories. I think they're all incredible human beings, and I think we can all learn from their stories and their experiences, their mistakes, their gracefulness, everything about them. We can learn from them. And students, if you're watching, a cool thing is a lot of the choices and decisions that they made happened while they were students. So a cool thing that I love about their stories is that their situation they went through happened as a 17-year-old, and I think it directly applies to some of the stuff that we're also going through in
Yeah,
our student
for
ministry
sure.
right now. How I wanted to open up was with this phrase, and I don't care who goes first. You guys can. we're nominating Stephanie. There it is. I love it.
Excellent.
I wanted to open up with this phrase right here. if you really knew me, you would know. ... And here's why I love that phrase, is because it creates a clear and concise way of saying, if you really knew me, you would know that I've struggled with XYZ, or I've made this mistake in my past, but I'm not like that anymore. Now I'm this way. And because I'm different now than I used to be, you never would have known that about me.
Yeah.
Unless I shared it. And so I don't know about you guys at this table, but for me personally, I like church better when we're vulnerable. I like church better when we're honest with each other, sharing our hurts, sharing our stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I want to do tonight. Let's keeping in mind we got students watching and parents and a lot of Calvary Church people. We're just going to be honest and vulnerable. And if you guys are appreciative of it, go ahead and comment because we can see you. So it feels like you're in the room with us when you're commenting. It really does. Like I can see Daniel's comment right there at the very bottom. So I'm just going to open it up. If you really knew me, if you really knew Stephanie Robinson, you would know.
I had to think about it. Words were hard when we were starting this. So if you really knew me, I also had to call a friend who has known me since I was about 8 years old and ask her opinion. Like, just help us sister out, okay? Just like put it all together for me. And this person, I called her in particular because she's probably the person that like all the things that I've done, which I'll tell you about, all feel like things that I like needed to do. They had to happen. They were just in order from certain choices led to certain things. And so I had to accomplish whatever that I was that I accomplished. But she always makes it sound like I have literally moved a mountain. Like I turned water into wine. Like I am responsible for snow. Like it's so incredible and so encouraging. When I hear it, I'm like,
but that's who she is.
You're right.
She's an encourager.
We all have to have a friend like that.
You have to. You really, really have to. So I love her very much. Thanks, Crystal, for helping me remember who I am. So if you really knew me, you would know that I experienced an unplanned pregnancy as a teen. Now, I got lucky because I was pregnant at 19, but I had the baby when I was 20, so I barely missed out on being a teen mom. That was the single upside to the situation. So yeah, I went to Calvary Church. I've gone to Calvary Church since I was 4 years old. My mom had ties to the church whenever she was a kid, and she was looking for a church whenever it was time for us to go to kindergarten. And so she put out some feelers, literally found, I think, the name in a phone book, saw who the pastor was, realized, oh my gosh, she knew Brother Lyles when she was a younger girl, and we have visited and been here since then, 26 years later. So that's huge. So I've gone to this church my whole life. These people are like my family. They are the family that we've chosen, right? We're probably closer to these people than our actual family members. So having gone to Calvary my whole life, I mean, I was the least likely person that you would have thought was going to go to college and come home with a baby. But nevertheless, that was the case, and that was what happened. So I have a late birthday. My birthday's in October, so I was able to start school a little early. I graduated high school a little early. So I started college when I was 17, and then turned 18 a few months later. And so then when I was 19, I got pregnant with the most precious, I'll cry. He went to be with his dad this week, so I miss him already. But
we all
sweetest little boy, Jackson Monroe Mason. And so I was already that was in the summer, and found out about that, broke my mom's heart, all the things. I wasn't sure we were going to get through all that. But then we started school. Like, I got pregnant in the summer. I went back to school in the fall, and I went to college at the University of Arkansas. Go Hogs. And so,
do they have a hand signal?
Oh, it's a whole thing.
A whole dance.
Clear the table, guys.
Stephanie was ready. She was like, "Yeah, let's do this."
Pastor Tommy, don't you comment? I don't want to see your name pop up.
There it is.
Brother Lyles can comment as much as he wants to.
3 of my faves on here tonight. Let's go. It's 3 of my faves too.
Yes.
I love this. I love the vibe in the room right now. It feels. And honestly, it's probably because Amanda's in here.
It's 100% Amanda. It's 100% Amanda. So I went back to school, started the school in the fall of my junior year, knowing that I was going to have a baby in March and I was going to go home. So I started the fall semester. Jackson was born in spring break. So I went home in the spring semester, stayed home in the summer. And then when Jackson was 7 or 8 months old, we went back to school. We went back to Arkansas to go to school. My amazing roommate was a really great friend I went to church with there. And she lived with us. And I wish I could pop a photo up so that you could all could see it. But then there's a photo of my mom and Jackson as the cutest little tiny fuzzy headed kiddo. And my sister and myself when I graduated from the University of Arkansas. So after that, I'd always wanted to be a nurse. But after having a little baby, experiencing a divorce and everything that goes along with the divorce, that's a whole other podcast. I'd always wanted to be a nurse, and having a little kiddo, just not knowing how that was going to work and if that was just a dream that was going to have to be kind of set to the side or not. So I came home and just did what I normally do, which is I worked at the Gap. Shouts out to the Gap. My entire experience in college, I loved the Gap. And so when I first came home, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I know I can work there. I have friends there. I went back to work there immediately, and ended up, the Lord really orchestrated me running into someone that knew I had applied for a job at one of our local hospitals. And I ran into her one day in Gap Kids, and she remembered me.
Wow.
A few weeks later, pulled my name and my application, searched it herself, and called me and said, hey, I found your application. I want to see if you want to apply for this other job instead of the one that you actually applied for.
Wow.
And so my very first job was in Medical City, Fort Worth. Plaza Medical Center was what it was called back then. And I thought, okay, cool. I was a unit secretary, so when you called a unit, you talked to me.
Nice.
And I loved it. And I thought, maybe this is good enough. Maybe this is close enough. Can't get through nursing school. There's no way I can get back through school. We barely got through the other portion. Finishing college was a goal that honestly other people don't get to accomplish. I was so lucky that I was already so far into my years in college that getting back to school, finishing, and when I say I finished, I took a class at Arkansas Hill College, the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, which is kind of like UT Arlington, all of the little conglomerates.
And this is all with a baby.
All of this is with the baby. And all of this is in 2 semesters. I probably have a transcript from 5 different schools because I had to piece it together
Wow.
to finish that. So
Right.
my transcript looks crazy. But all of those things put together so that I could finish. So to think I was going to go through school all the way again with a little kid just didn't sound like something that was going to happen. So I started working this job and I loved it so much. And I thought maybe it might be enough. I loved talking to people, and but in the end, it wasn't. It just wasn't going to be enough. I'll never forget the first person that I experienced pass away, and that kind of did it. I knew that wasn't going to be enough. I needed to be there more,
Doing more.
than just sitting outside the room or patting people's backs. And so, knew that had to happen. So I applied to the most expensive school in the entire world, TCU, because they have an accelerated program. So I had a 3-year-old and then went to the accelerated program at TCU, which is 15 months long, and you get a whole other bachelor's degree. So it was quick and fast and furious. But when I got accepted to TCU, my mom brought my acceptance letter and balloons up to my unit at my job.
That's awesome.
So
You're an awesome
still
mom.
super.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'm gonna recover from these tears. Anyway, so we did it. I graduated from TCU, and I've been a nurse for 5 years, which is absurd. And I take care of moms and babies, which, having been 19 while I was pregnant and 20 when I had a baby, there's opportunities where you don't want to project your situation or your feelings on your patient, but there are so many times when I can't help it. There's 20-year-olds or 16-year-olds that they need to know how old I was when I had my baby. They need to be able to see themselves in my shoes sometimes. And so it doesn't happen all the time, but occasionally it's the right person at the right time. And it's like all the things that we went through makes it worth it when I get to help that person or take care of this mom, or even just last night, there's been moments where I realize, had I not accomplished all these things, then I couldn't be here for this person in this moment. Who else would have been?
Mm-hmm.
So we graduated. I graduated nursing school right on time, right before Jackson went to kindergarten. And so now I get to be lucky. I'm going to get to be charged and take care of not only the nurses that are on my shift, but then just being able to be a resource for the patients, and now looking into pursuing further education. But I think some of the things I wanted to mention were, I did all those things. And like I said, they seemed like things that had to happen. Like, you had a baby young. You have to be able to take care of him. They didn't seem like anything to shout out about, or it just seemed like this is required. This is necessary. I have to do this in order to make sure that Jackson has what he needs and I have what I need, and to be capable of taking care of things on my own and self-sufficient. But one of the hardest parts, and this is the part that I try to explain to high school seniors or college freshmen or whatever, is we go away to school. Like, that was my experience. A lot of people don't have that experience. They don't go away to school, or they might kind of stay close. But for me, I went all the way away to school. 6 hours feels like a long way. And so it feels like sometimes you can live this whole separate life away from everybody else. And for me, knowing that that was the case, there was a lot of shame when I came back to my family and my church and my friends that know me well and expected certain things of me. And the shame of feeling like that changed. There are still people that I love forever, but they don't treat me the same still. Or our relationship isn't the same with people that I grew up with my whole life, and that's hurtful. But then the flip side of that there are people I've had the opportunity. Katie McLean commented on here, and she asked me to come and speak to some of the girls from Embrace Grace. And I still have a girl that reaches out to me ever so often and asks me how to overcome things, or how I overcame this, and that she wants to be a nurse, and just figuring those things out. And so you just never know the path that your life will take. And one of the biggest takeaways is just, there's no thing. I want the students in CYC to know that when it gets to be your turn and you step out of high school and you go to college and you realize you're making your own decisions, there's not one decision that you can make that will disqualify you from walking back into our home church.
Amen.
And bringing that pain and those mistakes back into that altar and leaving them there and not picking them back up.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we keep carrying it with us and picking it back up and taking it with us, then it keeps walking with us and we won't ever overcome it, and we need to overcome it in order to bring our testimony full circle. Mm. I'm really proud to have gotten through all those different things. And sometimes when I tell my story, I'm like, no, that's not me. That's somebody else. But that is the case. And I am super proud every time I put my badge on or I catch myself in the mirror in my scrubs. I'm just like,
you did
this
that.
is me. I'm a whole nurse. Like, I get to sign RN behind my name. I feel like I'm pretending sometimes. Awesome. But there's just so much more to come. And so just know that there's no thing that can keep you from being able to walk into any service at any altar, whether that altar is in your room, at your house, or actually in church, and belong there.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I love about this phrase, and if you guys want to chime in with anything with Stephanie's story, and if y'all loved Stephanie's story, look at your mama.
I know.
If you love Stephanie's story, please like the video. Please leave a hand clap. Leave something, because we can see you. I love that phrasing, right? If you really knew Stephanie, you would know that she was pregnant as a teenager. When I first met, right, I have no context for anyone in the church, because August was the first time that I had ever been at Calvary before. If you hadn't told me that, Stephanie, I never would have known that about you, because you're such a gracious person, and you're such a hard worker, and you're just so many
Thanks,
great
T.
qualities about you. I knew from the moment I asked you to go check on that snow cone truck and CYC.
I'm responsible for the snow cones.
I mean, it was just like Stephanie's a person that you can trust. She's a person that's always going to be there. She's reliable, hardworking, dependable, and
she loves Calvary.
She loves Calvary.
I love Calvary.
She gets it done.
All these amazing things.
And she throws the best baby showers. She threw my baby shower when I was pregnant with Brian.
And I think every party or event we've ever done with CYC, it wouldn't happen without Stephanie. Like, I'm constantly like, yo, Stephanie, we need to order this. We need to do that. We need to do this. And so
I love it. I love to serve our people and support our people and really because we're supporting our people, but it goes so much further than that. You know what I mean? It's every time we're supporting anybody inside of our walls at Calvary Church, you know that they're supporting however many people outside. And so when we're uplifting each other, then it goes so far. PT, I love you. Brother Laos, I'm crying.
Man, that's awesome. Stephanie, I'm so grateful for you for sharing.
Thank you.
We're going to come back to you.
Cool.
Right? We're going to come back to you.
Good. I need to get it together.
So either Amanda or Pastor Kat, whoever wants to go next.
I don't mind going next.
All right, cool. So Amanda Gonzalez, if you're watching, Amanda is our church secretary. I'll wait until the end of your story to tell a story about you because you're one of my favorite people in the whole world. So Amanda, if we really knew you, what would we know about you?
Well, you would know that I come from a broken home. When I was 5, my mom and dad divorced. My mom worked countless hours just to be able to provide for us. And although I'm the youngest of 5, all of my siblings are in their mid to late 40s. And I'm 33, so I kind of grew up like the only child.
Yeah. First of all, Amanda, your birthday was like last week, right? A couple weeks ago.
February.
It was recent.
27th.
When I heard Amanda was 33,
I know.
I was like, "What? Like, girl, you're so young."
I know it.
I know. I look older than I
Stop.
No, it's only because
Our
of
Calvary
Elizabeth,
Christian
right?
Academy days.
So, with all of that being said, my mom was always gone, and she worked 2 jobs. She worked at McLean Middle School from 9 to 2, and then from McLean Middle School, she worked at Stonegate Nursing Center from 2:30 to 11 o'clock at night. So those hours, I was at home by myself all the time. And although my dad, I still had a relationship with him. I'd go visit him on the weekends, but he still wasn't involved the way a father should be involved. So I really didn't have my dad's support a lot growing up. And with all of that said, my mom was gone, and I went to Rosemont Middle School, 8th grade, had a group of friends, and the group of friends with girls and guys, and we would always go hang out at this one guy's house. And his family, they're always there. So the family that I seen he had, I desired that family. Mm-hmm. Like, even though they're dysfunctional or maybe not the family I should desire to have, his parents were always home. He was very close with his siblings, and there was always food there. He was never alone. Just that family environment that I was desiring because I didn't have. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I gotta get with this guy. I gotta settle down with him, get married, do whatever I can to be a part of what I don't have.
You were an 8th grader.
I was an 8th grader. Wow. Okay. So we started dating, and we dated from 8th grade all the way through our senior year. And when I was in 12th grade in my senior year, we started getting more serious, got pregnant, and I thought, this is my opportunity to trap him and get married. And that didn't work because what I desired and what I wanted, God wanted those things, but God intended for those things to happen differently and in different times. than what I want. I wanted it as of yesterday, and God knew that I had to work through other things. And versus my focus being on, you know what, God, I'm alone. I'm by myself. I don't have the mother and the father that I desire to have. I don't have the family that I'm longing to have. But instead of knowing that, God, you are my mother, you are my father, you are the
Wow.
family
Yeah.
that I need, I was too young to understand any of it. Pastor Tommy and Denora, they were my youth pastors. I did attend youth group, but not as often as
Pastor
I
Tommy
needed
did
to.
your quinceanera, right?
Yes, Pastor Tommy did my quinceañera. And so I wasn't able to attend youth group every Wednesday night because my mom was working on a Wednesday night, or we weren't able to attend church every Sunday because my mom was at work. So I didn't have that consistency either to be able to at least find friends at church or to really establish a good friendship with someone in the youth group. So I established friendships outside of church, which were friends from school. And because of the community that I was raised in, the environment that I was in at school, I kind of didn't have a choice of, okay, this is a good group of kids, and this is the bad group of kids. It was kind of just all. It was. So, yeah, just hanging around the wrong crowd and trying to give myself something that I wanted, and got pregnant with Elizabeth. But I always had a desire, and I always knew what I wanted. And I knew that what I wanted for myself, I did not want my kids to go through what I went through. So I had this burning desire, this fire in me, that I was determined that my kids were not going to go through and struggle with not having a family home and not having their mother and their father there. I knew that what I wanted. So as soon as I found out that I was pregnant with Elizabeth, there's a show. I was at home. I had to miss school. I missed a lot of my senior school because I had a lot of morning sickness. Kind of had just like all day sickness, really. So I stayed at home most of my senior year. And while I was at home, I was watching this show called Jerry Springer. Does anybody remember that show? Jerry Springer? Do not go and YouTube that. Do not YouTube.
Not at home.
Andrew's trying to edit in the other room real quick.
Poor Andrew.
So was watching that, and a commercial came on, and it was Career Centers of Texas that came up, and pretty much just saying if you're looking for a trade, you could be done in 9 months. You don't even have to have a high school diploma. Just come take a test, and if you pass it, you get in, and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to go back and graduate from high school because I have a baby. I'm feeling sick, and I probably won't be able to do it until I've had Elizabeth. So immediately I knew, okay, I can't depend on my mom to support my baby and me. I can't depend on anybody. I have to do this on my own. So I called and I scheduled an appointment and said, okay, Mom, I have an appointment scheduled. I need to go and apply. I need to, take this test so I could get enrolled in school because I'm having a baby and I need to support this child because you can't even support us. So that was my plan. I signed up. I got in, and it happened to be, it was the 9-month program. So by the time I was done with it, I already had Elizabeth. And this is where God really starts to manifest his goodness, his grace, and his love. I applied for so many dental offices, and no one was hiring. No one wanted to hire me because, okay, I was 17 when I got pregnant, but 18 when I had Elizabeth, but I still looked like I was 12 because I was a kid.
So
still
12
looks
right
like
now.
she's 12, let's be honest.
Right. You can't tell, but Amanda's like 5 foot flat.
4'11" to be exact. So finally, there were a lot of dentists saying, well, you just look too young. Your voice even sounds too young. We just, come back in a few more years when you've matured. So finally, this one dentist, he took a chance and he hired me. And that is where I found my family, was with Dr. Amos Ross is who hired me. And the staff and the dentist taught me life skills that I did not have. just because I didn't have anyone at home raising me. I raised myself, and just really helped me with my confidence, and was just a blessing in disguise. I worked there for 14 years, and that is just I'm indebted to them because of
That's
it.
unheard of for like a 20 to 30 year old.
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
like the average 20s, you have seven different jobs. So for you to work at the same
Yes.
job all through your
Mhm.
20s for 14 years,
Yeah.
Yes.
big kudos.
I mean,
I've been a
So-
nurse for 5 years and I've worked in, I've had 3 different
Right?
jobs.
Yeah.
So.
Elizabeth was about 18 months when I met my husband, Ramon Gonzalez.
Andrew, do you have some
Yeah.
music to play?
We need like
Over
epic
the name.
Ramon.
And that is another huge blessing and just another confirmation that there is no sin. There is no bad choice or mistake that you could ever make in your life that will ever stop or hinder the blessings and the promises that God has for you.
Mhm.
When
That's
he
so
says
good.
in Jeremiah that he knows the thoughts and the plans for you that he has, he knows those thoughts and plans.
Mhm.
When I thought my thoughts were to marry this one guy so I could have that family,
Mhm.
God was, no. But I'm
Mhm.
going to go ahead and let you do what you want to do because he gives us our free will.
Yeah. I think sometimes when you have situations like ours, you think, oh, God can take your brokenness and, put you back together. And I don't know if anyone has ever tried to like glue back, you've dropped a plate or you've dropped like a little teacup and you're trying to put it back together. And even though you've gotten it on the best you could, you still see like those cracks or it might not hold water all the way, but it's put back together kind of. And sometimes I think that's how people feel like, oh, he can pick up he'll put me back together or I'll be okay, but I'm still not as valuable. And that's so not the case. The Lord, he restores us back to our intended purpose. Like that's what his true grace does. He doesn't just, sweep it up and, pick up the brokenness.
And he makes all things new. And by new doesn't mean that I'm going to repair. It means new, as brand new, like if I bought it brand new.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth was 18 months. And a lot of you may not know this either, but we are a blended family. Elizabeth and Ramon, that Elizabeth is not Ramon's biological daughter. So I met Ramon, and gosh, I remember, and I'll never forget, and I won't say names, but there was a person who told me, you'll never have the husband that you think you want because you're unholy now, you're impure, you're unclean. Look at you.
Wow.
You have a daughter who's gonna. Can I just show off my husband
Yeah.
and tell you, honey, that was a lie from the enemy, because when God blessed me with Ramon, boy, he blessed me.
Mhm.
And this whole time while I was pregnant with Elizabeth, I was praying the entire time that the Lord would save her dad, her biological father, because I'm like, okay, she needs her dad in her life and no one else. Well, although I thought the plans were for her biological father to be in our lives, no, God still had something better, greater. God never says no. And he never says no. And he'll give you what you ask for, but sometimes the time is different from your timing.
His
But
promises are yes
yes.
and amen.
And so everything I was praying for, I didn't realize that it was probably praying for Ramon unawarely and
Yeah.
knowingly, that I was praying for him. And he has just been the best dad. I mean, he's my family. He is everything that I ever needed. He's been a dad to me in a sense, because he literally spoils me and does anything and everything for me. Not to say I don't want it to make him appear as, he's a weak man or I just have him in check like that. I don't. It's really because he loves me. It's because he wants to see me happy. And he loves Elizabeth. And there's one thing that I love so much about this is the fact that we agreed, and he knows that it's not, obviously Elizabeth, there's nothing that's ever going to change the fact that they're not biologically related. That, that's not his daughter, and he's not her father. But I think what helps us and why people are so taken back by, I would have never known that y'all were a blended family, is because the truth is that what helps us in our family is he doesn't see her as, that's my stepdaughter. He sees her as, that's my wife's daughter. And I love my wife, and I'm going to take care of my wife's daughter. I don't know if that's making any sense, but it helps us because it's not like, well, that's my stepdaughter. It's like everybody has this thing of, step parents and step kids don't get along. But I think what helps us get along is that we've laid down the boundaries that this is my daughter and I'm your wife, and he does not want to hurt me, so he doesn't do anything to hurt Elizabeth. Likewise, I've told Elizabeth, he's my husband.
That's good.
Love, respect my husband because that's my husband. I want, I'm your mom. But just to get back to things that are relatable to CYC, perhaps there's been a choice or a decision that you've made and you feel, oh my gosh, how are things, what good's going to come out of this? What change is going to happen out of this? Does God still love me? Am I still worthy? First of all, the answer is yes. And there, like I said before, there's nothing that you cannot do to stop God's love for you. He loves you unconditionally, means without any condition, no matter what you've done. And perhaps you feel like, well, I can't talk to my mom about this, or I can't talk to my dad about this. What do I do? What's the first step in correcting this? What's the first step in making the situation better? Your first step is just to make things right with God. Confess to him. There's no conversation, there's no confession that's too hard that God can't handle. Just be honest and confess with him. Confess to him, Lord, I did this, I made this mistake, but I know that you love me. I know that your love for me will never change. And just stay confident in his word, knowing that whatever it is that you've done, there's nothing that's going to hinder that promise that God has for you. Because look at me. I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that God, what the enemy probably intended for evil, God turned it around and worked it for my good.
Yeah, so good.
And now here I am. And
Here you are, girl.
Here
The
you
rest
are.
is
Now you're on
history.
a famous podcast.
Would you say that it's out of Ramon's abundant love for you that it pours over onto Elizabeth? And then that same way, like Elizabeth's love and honor and respect for you pours over onto Ramon. And I feel like that's what God's asking us to do for his people. Yes, there are some people that, like, you're not related to them. They may be a different race than you. They may be a different whatever. And you could, some people might want to pull that card, which is not okay. It's not okay. But if nothing else, let your love for God overflow and love his people. And I think that's like a beautiful picture, like,
yes,
of what God's asking us to do. Like,
100%.
you can try to discredit and, like, I guess, separate yourself from other people so much by saying, I'm this or I'm not this, and they're this and I'm not this. But instead, God's saying, but it's your love for me that should make you love my people or love all people,
And he loves me for who he knew that I was coming. When we met, he knew I had a baby. That was the first thing I told him. I was going to make that clear. I have a baby, and you want to go to the movie? She's going.
I love that.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I love that.
So I want to bring up Frozen 2 because of what you said, Amanda, about, no matter what you've done, first take it to God. And then, like, what's the next step after that? So there's a part in Frozen 2, right, where they've made some awful decisions, awful choices. Can I just spoil the movie? Like,
Hit it.
all right, cool.
I mean, if nobody's
Elsa's-
seen it
yeah,
20
if you
times
haven't
by
seen-
now.
If you haven't seen Frozen 2 by now, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So, Elsa's dead. The snowman Olaf is dead, and
Flurried.
and he flurried, And old girl Anna, right? She's in a cave. She thinks she's trapped, and she sings that song,
The next
"The Next Right
thing.
Thing." And she's saying, all of my choices have been awful. Everything that I've been through has been terrible.
Yeah.
What do I do next? I have to do the next right thing.
Yeah. So good.
And so when I counsel students who come into my office, say I've made a really bad decision, or I've made a really bad choice, and I don't know what to do. I say, throw everything out the window. You're here now. You're talking to me. That's step one.
Yeah.
What's step two? Let's pray. Let's get right with God. So we pray and we get right with God. What's the next step? We got to tell your parents.
Yeah.
And I will sit here with you while you make that phone call.
I got you.
It's going to be hard. And then what's the next step? Well, you need accountability. I can only be accountable to you for so long, but you need like good friends who are going to hold you accountable. There's steps. So there's right decisions that you can make and right choices that you can make to help right the wrong, right? Because we can all sit in our shame and all sit in our guilt and never tell anybody about it. And then we end up dying a lonely life with no community. Or we can open up and tell somebody, tell a pastor, tell a friend, tell your parents. Ephesians 6, the beginning of Ephesians 6 is obey your parents, do what is right, and then all these other things will be added. And then later in Ephesians 6, it talks about the armor of God. Well, if you're not obedient to your parents first, you never get to that part about putting on the armor of God. And then at the end of that, it talks about speaking in tongues, right? Praying in the Spirit all the time. That's the full verse of Ephesians 6. Well, we like to just read that armor of God section because that's our favorite section. But we skip over the whole obey your parents and be honest with your parents. And I think our students need to know that. Like if I'm gonna put on the armor of God every day, included in that is telling my parents stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And being honest with my parents.
Unfortunately, that's, our choices get us in and they get us out of our messes. And, if we're confident enough to make certain choices going one direction, then we have to be adult enough to make the right choices to get us out of that situation. And, sometimes those choices are forced. I know when I was at school, I had joined a sorority, I think the semester before. And so there were things that I just straight up didn't get to do. And I, before I had Jack and before I went home, and then after we went back to school, none of my other friends, everyone else was like getting their first apartment and like getting a puppy at their apartment. And I had Jackson. He was, and it correlated a lot, really. Their puppies and my baby were actually very similar.
They eat and sleep.
But I made a rule, and this was a choice. These choices were direct correlations to the choice that I had made that put myself in that position. And I know for some people, their situations are different. In some situations, those pregnancies were as a result of an abuse or something like that, and that's a different situation. But for me, when I got back to school, if I wanted to go somewhere or do something, I made this rule that if I hadn't found a babysitter or something for Jackson by a certain time of the day, that I accepted that I wasn't going to go. Because the last thing I was going to do was going to sit at home with my baby mad that I couldn't go do what I wanted to do or be like everybody else. Therefore, being upset with this little baby or being upset at these things that I couldn't change when really it was my own actions that I should be upset about. And so just to save my relationship with Jackson and my feelings about myself, I made that decision that if we didn't have things set up by about noon, then we just moved on and we let it go and looked for the next opportunity to do something, because that was the adult decision to make. Like that was what we had to do. And that's what these choices are. That's what Pastor Turner's talking about. We can make decisions all day long and we can know, you're right. You know that wasn't the right decision for you. But unfortunately, my mom says this sometimes, and I hope it's not sacrilegious, but she says that the wages of sin isn't always death. And sometimes the wages of sin is
The consequences.
Yeah.
the consequences.
Yes.
What I was going to say, adding to that, is God's grace is real, and his forgiveness is, without a shadow of doubt, 100% real as far as the east is from the west, right? But also, I don't know how to word that correctly. Consequences, there's always going to be natural consequences. Jesus takes care of the spiritual consequences for our actions.
Yeah, so good.
But we still live in the world, and there's natural consequences.
Yep.
So, just because you've heard incredible testimonies does not give us liberty to go out and be like, oh, God's going to forgive us. I'm part of a
Exactly.
great
Yeah.
church that's going to forgive me and take care of me.
Exactly.
Because
Yep.
we're here. We support you. We're going to do that.
Or it's going to turn out
But-
for me the way it turned out for Stephanie.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
And I've told
It will
students that before, that like students that are 16, and they are doing certain things that I was much older than them. You're 16. You haven't even graduated high school yet. I was halfway through college. My situation is going to look different than your situation.
Mhm.
I had a mom that literally was able to retire when Jackson was a baby. I can't tell you how many times I've paid for a babysitter or something like that. I have an incredible family.
Mhm.
I couldn't be sitting in this chair if the Lord hadn't worked it out to the point where my mom could take care of Jackson while I went to nursing school and stuff. But don't get it twisted,
Yeah.
CYC.
Yes,
Don't
there's
get it
natural
twisted.
consequences for
Don't set yourself up for
decisions.
failure.
And so you've got to understand that if I'm not in obedience or not honoring my parents and stuff, that those are things that are going to end up
That's step
happening
one.
natural.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Step
natural
one, obey
consequences.
my
There's
parents.
always natural consequences, and they can
Yeah.
be good natural consequences or bad ones. Jesus took care of the spiritual ones, but
Mhm.
you have to own up to the natural
Yeah.
consequences, and sometimes it is terrible. But the great thing is because Jesus took care of the spiritual stuff,
Mhm.
like in your case, he worked it all together out
Yeah.
for the
Mhm.
good of those who are called according to his purpose. And I
Yeah.
think it's so beautiful.
And I get students all the time that'll say that 15, 16 years old, that'll say, I feel like I'm called to ministry, Pastor Turner. Like what can I be doing right now to prepare myself? And my answer is always obey your parents.
Mhm.
That's literally always my first answer.
It
And
is.
sometimes they'll just stare at me like, okay, well, duh.
Yeah.
But like, what else? I'm like, no, that's the most important thing you can be doing right now as a 15-year-old who's called to ministry
Yeah.
is obey.
You know,
Be obedient to your parents.
Yeah.
what I wanted to my decision, if you knew me in high school, I probably was not the best teen. And if my mom's watching this, she's probably like, but I want, don't regret how you treated your parents, because
Yep,
I look
100%.
back
Yes.
at how I maybe treated my parents, and I actually thought I was a really good kid in comparison to what all my friends did. I didn't do all that stuff. I didn't treat them the way, but I did not respect and obey my parents the way that I should have.
Mhm.
And now I look back and I'm like, Mom, I'm so sorry for being a
Yeah.
turd.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, right now it may seem like your parents are being so difficult, but
Especially
make sure.
since we're stuck with
I know.
Yeah.
self-quarantined
Trapped
with
in a
them.
house with them. But make sure that you don't allow a temporary attitude
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
even words impact your relationship in the long run.
Yeah.
Thank God my mom's one of the first people I'm gonna call if anything ever happens, or
Yeah.
if I don't get a daily call from her, I'm like, my mom didn't call.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Also,
Yeah.
same. Also
Yeah, we
same.
know.
Mama
I think I get it.
Janae, mothers all.
I think I get a daily call from your mom.
I want to be just like her.
And CYC
Oh, man.
students, just keep in mind, just always think, how will this choice or this decision that I'm going to make, how will it affect my relationship with
Yeah.
God? Because the choice that I made, it's like I put God on the back burner
Mhm.
and I kind of forgot about it. I became dry. I was spiritually dry and dead because my whole focus was on what Amanda wanted and needed, and I need to have this person in my life to get what I want. That my whole focus was drawn away from Christ.
Mhm.
And we need to always remember, what are the decisions and the consequences? How will they affect my relationship with Christ? Will
Yeah.
it draw me closer or further away from him?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's one thing that you need to keep in mind.
Yeah. Pastor Turner said about students that want to go into ministry or whatever, and what can you do today? You know what I mean? And each decision that you make it can either put you one step closer or one step further from whatever that goal is going to be. And so I know for me, I loved the youth group when I was a kid. Pastor Tommy was my youth pastor I think he took me to camp the very first time when I was like 8 years old. And then he was my youth pastor. He preached our graduation Sunday. And so like our relationship is so special. But for years, I never considered even ever like volunteering in the youth ministry, which is crazy because, like I said, my best friends, I went to school like kindergarten to 5th grade with half of the people that were in my youth group when I was a kid. There was, I think, like 11 of us that graduated together that were so close, and our families are all still at Calvary. Never considered after I became an adult that I would volunteer in CYC. Never. Who
like never, guys.
Because why would those parents want their kids to sit underneath like my influence? I had done this, and they all knew it. They were all there every single Sunday when I sat there with a growing belly in our church on the second row with my mom every week. Like, why would they want that? Or, she's a nice girl, but all of these other things, and that's all that the devil wants. All he wants you to do.
Yep.
To take a tiny little bit of truth and make you
Absolutely.
think that it's like he takes the truth that you're pregnant. Like, I heard one time in this preaching that the devil never gives you full lies. Like, he'll take a little bit of truth and add a whole bunch of lie to it, because if there's a little bit of truth, you might hold on to it and really listen to it.
Absolutely.
But he's just a liar. That's all it is.
Absolutely. And all he needs you to do is nothing.
Your flesh will deceive you too.
Yeah.
We can't give all the credit to the enemy. We got to take responsibility.
Yeah.
You desire something, ask God, is this your will for my life? Is this what I desire, what you desire for me? And is this what you desire for me today? Because what I wanted there's nothing wrong with me wanting that. What was wrong with that is that wasn't the timing, God's timing.
Yeah.
It was my timing, because I thought that was the only way out of my situation.
Yeah. I think as women, so often, like, that's one thing we do. We get ahead of ourselves. Raise your hand, CYC, if you have a Pinterest board that has to do with a wedding or
Amy
a baby.
has one.
Or
Amy
a
has
house.
one. She wanted a Star Wars wedding.
Or, any of those things. And I know when I was speaking with a student about this topic not too long ago, and I was like, those are things that you want, and those are great. But that's down here.
Yeah.
And there's decisions that are happening right here that will keep you from having the baby Pinterest board.
Yes.
If you don't pay attention to
Yes.
this. If you start detouring this way, it's going to take you 40 years in the wilderness to get all the way over here. And you might be over here.
Hey, I would, so like what you were just talking about, you're like, it might be what God has for you. Like when the Israelites are traveling and they get right before the promised land and it's not time for them to go. And they're like, but God promised us. And they go into battle and they're like, nah, they totally,
Yeah.
they're they do not succeed because they didn't go in God's timing.
That's such a Calvary's Kids answer. I love it.
Hi, this is our children's pastor.
You guys, I speak in sounds.
That's hilarious.
I love that.
All right, so it's 8:05, so we're 5 minutes over our time. But I don't think anybody out here cares that we're over
Is
our time.
anybody got to
They
go
don't
to
have,
work?
they don't
They
have
got
nothing to
nothing
do,
else to
nowhere
do.
to go.
So here's what I would say is if you're out there and you're watching and you have a question for Pastor Kat, for Amanda, or for Stephanie, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
If you have any question at all, we'd love to hear from them. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and do our drawing for giveaways. And I love Grant says keep going. So I'm going to go ahead and do our giveaways. So Stephanie can see here that there's a wheel with all the names on it. You can see it, right, Steph?
Oh.
And so we have Chloe Andrews, and we have Jalissa Ponce and Michaela Middleton. So we have Chloe and Jalissa and Michaela Middleton. So when we get back to where we can see each other again,
Or mail.
I will have
Snail mail.
Yes,
I love
just
it.
snail mail, or we'll put it in your Calvary's Kids packet.
Yes,
so you
yes,
can
yes.
just
Come by and pick it up.
Messenger. Be a messenger.
They're gonna be like shaking them.
Um,
Is this the one with the gift card?
I will have Starbucks gift cards for y'all. So if there's no questions for anyone on here, we can still see your comments. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up. so we can get Amanda home to her family and Stephanie home to her family, Pastor Kat home to her
bed
family.
by myself.
So you don't work tonight, do you?
I do not.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, last 2 nights.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? You work with babies, right? Come January, February.
Oh my goodness.
With this
Listen,
quarantine?
all of you, if you don't want to be a part of the Corona kids that we're going to have in December, that's our busiest month ever, and it is going to be overflowing. But hey, go forth and prosper, multiply. That's what he's
The
called.
first
us.
command.
Adults, parents only.
Also,
Yes.
yes, above the age of this and this.
Yep. So awesome. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you
and
for inviting me.
Pastor Kat. Y'all's stories are so valuable and so needed. Our students need to hear and need to learn from y'all because hopefully they can avoid some of the things that y'all had to go through.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And
tough
and
times.
and they can
That's
also
what makes
see
it worth it, honestly.
Yep, and they can also see the grace that was extended to y'all by Ramon, by your church, by your mom, by Pastor Tommy, by our the whole pastoral staff. It's so needed for students to hear and learn from y'all. So thank you all so much. We will be live again next Wednesday. Or actually, I think next Wednesday is first Wednesday.
It is first.
It is first Wednesday. So first Wednesday, I think we're going to have something special planned. So stay tuned. Just stay up on our social medias. If you're not following Calvary FTW on Instagram, follow it. If you're not following CYC students, our Facebook pages, please stay updated because that's where we'll post what we're doing when we're going live. And also got to give a big shout out to our producer, Andrew Coonrod.
Yes.
Andrew
So
Coonrod
amazing.
in the other room, big time. And finally need to give a shout out to Corey Clayton. This is Corey's studio, and he's letting us use it for free. He's just
amazing.
donating it to us.
Thanks so much, Corey.
And he put a lot of money into the studio to make it excellent. So big shout out to Corey. He might still be fishing. I was seeing
Hey,
those.
he caught some big fish.
Yeah, I was just seeing those pictures
He
of his
didn't want to
bass.
share his fishing spot though.
You never share your fishing spot. That's true. So we love y'all so much. Thank you all so much. And hopefully we'll be with you soon. Thank you.